James, you're muted.
Oh, perfect. Usually it unmutes me by itself, but I completely just gave a wonderful introduction. That's now down the hole. I'll start all over. Welcome, everybody, once again to Terran
Hello,
Tuesday.
hello.
We have a few people in the chat there. Let's say hello to everybody in the chat. Thank you, one and all, for joining us. We got our friends over here, Moral Officer Gran. We have Lily Fields.
Yay!
Stopping in early to hear about FTL, which is going to be an interesting conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Snow,
Two of my favorite ladies.
Yes.
Snow, you said you might not be able to join us for too long, so why don't you start us off today? Why don't you tell us what you've been up to lately, and you can start off our conversation on FTL.
Okay, all right. Well, I've been working on my edit, of course, for Caballero del Camino. We got back my developmental edit for my editing team. It had some great suggestions. Story overall is solid and good, so I'm just going in and finessing a couple of things. But while we're at it, because you all know I'm a Skywarn coordinator and also a ham radio operator, and we do training. And of course, the devastation from Hurricane Helene. A love and peace to all my people out there, especially those that have been caught in the path of this hurricane. We love you guys. We are praying for you, and that includes Brian McCoppin and some of our other people that are in our Iron Age and Indie groups. We love you guys, and if you need help, please, if you can, reach out to us. Let us know how you're doing. So I've got a member of my family that has volunteered for deployment to the Carolinas and to the disaster zone. So I may have to get off to help them with that a little bit and to get some preparations done for them to go. And also to do our training for the ham radio operators that we have in our own local group. But so with that in mind, it's been a really crazy and busy time. So when I was like, oh my gosh, faster than light technology. And I love the fact because in Black Knight's story, I think James, you also touch on travel and mystical travel, magic. A lot of what we look at with faster than light technologies and things like that looks like magic to the people that have never seen it. My father, as many of you know, was a mid-centuries engineer. He was born in 1927. I was born to him late in life, and he was a veteran of World War II. But he started off in engineering when they were still measuring horsepower in terms of how many horses it would take to pull a load. By the time he finished, he had worked on the Apollo 11 project, the Tuesday submarine, and many other classified projects that were out there. And he was very much into the idea of the philosophies of Einstein and Newton and how we could possibly have faster than light travel. And so looking back on his works as we look at just the development of lasers and the ability to fly out in outer space, even before computers were created, they were working on these things by hand is how they did the launch for Apollo 11. It was not done with any major computer input. And so when we look at the history of how far we've come just in the time since Kitty Hawk and the first airplane flying, we are possibly within striking distance of faster than light travel. What sounds like science fiction will end up being reality for us. And it's all based on physics and how wavelengths actually work. Everything is a wavelength. What you're hearing right now and what you're seeing, my voice is a wavelength. Electricity is a wavelength. Electromagnetism is a wavelength. Hans Schantz, who is on Substack, if you're really interested in these discussions, goes into a very scientific detail about electromagnetism and its place in Einstein's theory of relativity. And so these things have a basis in reality. And though it may seem like it's impossible for us to get to this point, in reality, I believe that it is physically possible for us to achieve it if we harness the right technologies. And it's just breaking free of our mindset. But for now, it looks like magic. And when it looks like magic, that's where we go to the realms of fantasy and science fiction, because that's where we our first points, where we first dream our devices, where we dream the abilities. When we visualize what could be, we're able to work towards it. And so things that happen in your books, or so many of you who are writing space operas and space stories, when we look at the group of people that are working in the indies, and I want to especially mention Carl Gallagher and Hawk Austin and also for also Hans Schantz. They are in the industry. A lot of our people that are writing are NASA scientists or space engineering and technology people, and they are visualizing the future. So these dreams that we have step right into what they're doing. And when we look at what Black Knight specifically has done with his work in Star Shatter and other stories that he's written, he's laying the groundwork for what could be our future. So I want you to listen carefully to what he has to say about this today. My story is more about speed, faster than the speed of horses. They're pretty much moving at that, and then eventually they get to where they can actually fly some hybrid engine Hillisgram airplanes and helicopters. But we don't ever get to that point where we can actually go faster than light, except perhaps when we're talking about cybernetics, and that's a whole different area of the realm of cybernetic travel as opposed to physical travel. So I'm really excited to hear what these guys have to say today. And even if I have to hop off right now, I'm going to be listening in the background. But I love you, and I think it's fascinating. So let's get started with this. What y'all got for me?
All right, Black Knight. You were particularly excited to talk about this topic. This was
yes.
your pick of the week, and I know you have a lot to say about it. So just go ahead and tell us what you've been up to this week, what you've completed, and what you've been preparing for, and just have at it with the FTL.
I've been doing lots of edits, as you know. I'm also reformatting my first books to get them up to my latest standard, the new standard. And so mostly I've been doing that, but of course I split my time into different tasks, and one is, of course, I'm working on my eighth book, the Star Shatter series, which is over 50% completed. So, and I've been lately quite active on Substack, which I've been talking to lots of guys and gals there about the different days, different events that we have, like Warrior Wednesday, Sword and Saturday, and in particular, we have our own Terran Tuesday, which this stream is the main pillar of, and then my favorite, which is my bread and butter science fiction and space opera, as you know, and that's Sci-Fi Friday, or just Sci Friday, and I've been writing choose your own adventure story, but this one is with votes, and you have a couple of options, 3 options in each chapter, and the readers can of course vote, and the option with the most votes wins, and then I write the next chapter. So I have no idea how the story will end, and so far the province of Terrans, it's called the province of Terrans, and it's part of 3 stories. Each story is with a different character. The first one was the obvious choice of most my readers, which is a moral officer, and Lily and moral officer Grant and Wrangler too. They've been reading, so. Wrangler, please don't forget to vote. Excuse me. So, and of course, the more votes, the more comments I have. I use lines from the comments. I take the lines from the comments, and I compose a not a haiku, but a tanka poem, which is longer than a haiku. The haiku has 3 lines, tanka has 5. And so far, it's been really quite the interactive story. But you may wonder, where am I going with this? So the second and the third story of this story group, it mostly takes it takes a lot of space travel, and in particular faster than light travel in these stories, because the second one is about explorer, spacer, who is a master navigator. Like those of you who have read Star Shutter, they know that the Terran spacers, and spacers in particular, they are the space wolves, the ones who know the ins and outs of navigation between stars, and avoiding anomalies and traversing anomalies, and exploring mysterious parts of space or planets or ancient derelicts, and even exploring wormholes that have also their secrets. So it is how should I put it? It is a treat every time when I engage in threads, storylines that involve faster than light travel, and I did a lot of digging back in the day, and I'm still doing a lot of digging. So in particular, the spacers, as I said, they are masters of navigation. So some of them, they even possess maps, secret maps of wormholes, which I hope that you have some idea what the wormhole is. I've probably watched plenty of Star Trek, and you know that in the simplest of terms, a wormhole is a tunnel which bridges 2 points in real space, and physicists call it Einstein-Rosenberg bridge, or as it is known in Star Shutter, Tesla-Schauberger bridge, because Einstein is not someone who did the same things that he did here. So it's a bit different. So the first item of research which I actually did was from the Soviet side, so to speak, and I was looking at first for mentions in their old school science fiction, hard science fiction, and they have this book which is titled "The Hour of the Bull." Sadly, it's quite quite the obvious propaganda piece, but there are a couple of mentions of how quite minimalistic descriptions of how their FTL works, and it's basically they are traversing subspace. They slid the ship in between normal space and some other space which they have no idea how to traverse, but they managed to find a way to traverse the subspace, and that's how they achieve faster than light travel. But after that, I looked for real life physics, because I always look for the real life stuff. Obviously, everyone knows how Star Trek has inspired real life engineering advancements. Like everyone probably knows about the communicators from Star Trek, like the early communicators that they look like flipper phones, like the, I don't know. I think you've seen them. So I looked for that, and I found that in the 90s, in the 80s, there were physicists who actually did some math, and it was inspired by Star Trek and warp drive in Star Trek, which is actually, it's a different type of faster than light, which is it's not, you're not traversing subspace, you're not entering a wormhole, you're just bending normal space, warping space and creating a warp, so-called warp bubble, warp field, which then allows you to move faster than light. And of course, if your ship is capable of producing enough energy, and your warp nacelles can maintain the field for prolonged periods of time, you can fly much faster than light for longer periods of time, but you have to navigate because it gets complicated, since you're warping real space. You're actually causing pollution in space by warping it. And that pollution is in the form of anomalies. You're creating you're breaking, you're not breaking it every time, but with sufficient, like many years and a lot of traffic, warp traffic, real space starts to, like, the bonds of the very core of real space starts to bend and break apart, and you get insane anomalies pop all over. It's like they can swallow entire worlds. Suns can stop working, like the fusion process in the sun can stop working like that, and then restart, which can cause the sun to explode, and then you can say goodbye to your solar system. So this type of travel, although theoretical and possible theoretically, because the math they have, like NASA have scientists who have tested the math, and there are many other, like, genius level quantum physicists from across the world who have updated the calculations, because in the beginning, in the 90s, they said that yes, it's theoretically possible, but it's impossible for us to create that much energy, meaning our ability to create and store energy, transfer energy, is like grossly insufficient. But then I think it was a Mexican physicist who derived the solution from Einstein's field equations, and is called Alcubierre, I think. Yeah, I think I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name, but he advanced the math of this theoretical warp drive and this is actual real science, which you can go. There are a bunch of videos on YouTube. You can look for it on Wikipedia and search and read about it if you're interested in the physics. But still, there are a lot of other physicists who say, yes, it is theoretically possible, but it's quite dangerous, meaning it's not just dangerous to the ship. It's not just, yeah, we'll fail, like something will happen to the warp bubble and the ship will just be destroyed. It's not just that. It's they have they think that it's the same physicists who counseled the writers who wrote these episodes about the warp drive pollution that I told you about, and they worry that this, even if we can achieve this, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad for space. Basically, climate change in space.
I would say this because I've always been very this part of the argument that somehow it's dangerous or it's going to do this bad thing. No, and we have TV writers telling us that, and I understand there's some other, physicists and people that are theoretical. But let's talk about engineering, because engineering is not theoretical. It is dealing with actual physical things. And of course, the tool and die guys and all of my iron workers are like, yeah, sure. And I know my father actually started out as tool and die, worked his way up through steel, and then became a design engineer and finally working on aerospace. So yes, having your hands in the reality of the world is extremely important. And as we're hearing these voices chime in that we shouldn't do this and we shouldn't do that, let's not forget that they also told us that women shouldn't be in cars because it might make their organs mess up. So we have to be prepared for the fact that this is dangerous. There is no other way to say it. But the world is dangerous. The world is dangerous just as it is. Let's look at the Hurricane Helene, and God bless our people out there for doing what they're doing. And the world is dangerous. You're going to die. Why not die finding something that is worthy of exploration? The people don't look back on the fact that we had so many men die, our test pilots and others who sacrificed their lives just trying to test engines. My father worked on the F-104's engine and actually designed a nacelle that could be attached to another jet plane, so that way the engine could be tested while being attached to a proven system. That way it would take less lives for them to find out if it would work or not. It would just cut out in the middle of flight and the airplane would fall out of the sky. You had it on its own little sort of separate little pod, and they could test it there. And if it failed or whatever in flight, then the airplane could still fly. So we have these situations where, yes, it is dangerous. People are going to pass away. We have stories of one of the test pilots, his name was Swede, coming down out of the sky in a flat spin, and he's in the jet. And as it's flat spinning, he is saying over the air what the plane is doing, giving data as it comes down and crashes and burns, and he dies. This is the way of science. It is not sweet. It is not safe. There is no way to explore space without the threat of death. We still have to try. And when we are writing these stories, we need to give that inspiration to people that, yes, the world is a dangerous place, and so is everything else. It's still going to be a dangerous place whether or not we attempt to explore more, whether or not we attempt to reach for the stars. We might as well die trying.
Yeah, that's one of the major things that I touch when every time when I write about spacers, especially because they are the explorers. They are those who advance the fringe, the borders of the fringe, what is known and what is unknown, and they are the people who die. Exactly what you said, because they have to map the hyperspace routes. They have to map the wormholes, which is equally as deadly as trying to map the hyperspace routes. Even though they have some sensors, in many cases, you could you don't know what's lurking, especially in hyperspace. There have been ships, because it is being used for millions of years, and there have been crashes in hyperspace. There have been ships lost in hyperspace, which they're drifting there forever until something happens, and then they pop out. And then they call these the lost ships. Some call them the tomb ships. In some cases, there are even beings there who retreated into hyperspace because they. Well, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but they had the reason. So, and in the wormholes, probably one of the best explanations for the UFO phenomenon is actually wormholes. And these objects, they are just traveling through these wormholes, and because Earth has great many of them all over, it's kind of a hub, like a highway hub, if that makes sense. I think it does. So that's one of the theories. So wormholes, probably, I would say, in our future, wormholes would be the first faster than light travel type of travel that we will uncover, because they are already there. And theoretically, some scientists have proven, mathematically, they have proven the existence of wormholes, starting with Einstein. So we're not talking things that we have just imagined that might exist. You have scientific work done, and the goal is having actual ships that have proper relativistic engines that can fly in space to get to the freaking wormholes, and then we will need the sensors to discover said wormholes, and then we will need the space specific device which would stabilize the opening of the wormhole long enough for our ship to enter it. And after that, just like you said just a few minutes ago, it's the great unknown. Many people will die, many ships will vanish, but eventually they will find something. They might find stuff inside the wormhole, because some of these wormholes, they have different sleeves, different arms. The scientists theorize that it's not just from one point to another point, but from multiple points to multiple points, and that's because some of the older wormholes, they kind of merged together and formed like root canals systems through the subspace, and that's probably one of the other forces that keeps the galaxies and the planets and the systems from flying apart, other than the humongously massive black holes at the center of each galaxy, which keeps the galaxy intact, basically. So that's the thing about the wormholes. The hyperspace is entirely another entirely another story, which I would like to hear James's opinion first before I delve deeper into hyperspace.
I like how you actually explored not just kind of like, I guess, what we call traditional FTL, faster than light travel, being that some sort of technology that radically progresses our understanding of physics and allows us to just travel at such speeds that it is, faster than light, but also just all the forms of technology that could be considered, including wormholes. I actually was wanting to pick your mind about that, if there was anything beyond wormholes that would fall underneath that banner of faster than light tech, because in my own writing, the only type of faster than light technology they often run into, being my characters, is portals, I suppose, which I haven't necessarily broken down into scientific terminologies. I guess you could say something like Stargate. So just like instantaneous portals and things of that nature. Yeah. So right now it's almost like the Black Knight show when it comes to FTO. Feel free to just tear it apart and strut your knowledge all over us.
Well, the other thing which you have is like the advanced, like the artificial wormholes, which they only exist because of these giant, and not giant, but sentient made gates, and they are highly focused. They are much polished versions of the wormholes, and it's, if let's say it's not like super instantaneous, but it's multiple times faster than a normal naturally occurring wormhole. And some of the ancient civilizations, they have built a whole system. It's like a highway, a space highway of places where they created artificial wormholes, and other places where they use the pre-existing natural wormholes, but they have augmented them, meaning they have straightened them up, like made them more straight and faster. So they have cleared the rubble, etc., etc. They are maintaining them. They're maintaining the structure of subspace, and they made sure that they're gone. But they made sure that if an accident did happen inside the wormhole, they would go and remove the derelicts and etc. So it's almost like the metro. If you unfortunately, if you have like some accident in the metro, they'll have to go and remove the train or like fix the damage. So yes, but this actually requires a higher type of civilization on the scale. Civilization that probably can type 3, I think. Was it a type 3 that can harness energy of stars? Because to create artificial wormholes, you need it's not just one truckload of energy. It's sun's loads of energy to actually make that happen. So that means that's a level of engineering and physics that you need to first build Dyson spheres to contain to harness 100% of your sun's energy, and not just one sun. You need to maintain these wormholes, the artificial wormholes, to power the gates that requires the energy of multiple stars. And for those of you who like spooky stories, I might add that there was a scare which generated a bunch of stories that some astronomers found that a couple of stars were beginning to vanish, meaning that something was obstructing their light at regular intervals, as if and it wasn't. They calculated that it was not a planet or a moon or whatever, and at first they assumed that it's like it was going to go nova, but it didn't. It just vanished. They were observing that particular star, and then they observed another one, and then a couple of astrophysicists said, "Wait, that's proof that probably there was some civilization there that built Dyson spheres around the stars, and that's why the stars they didn't explode, because they obviously know how a supernova looks like, and they've watched a couple of them. They've seen the evidence of a supernova. So yeah, that's just imagine the level of civilization and science and progress such a race can can build a Dyson sphere around their sun. And you know that suns ain't small. I mean, planets are not small, but suns are. Come on, it's like you will probably need to harness the resources of your entire solar system and probably get resources from another solar system just to build one Dyson sphere. So logic assumes that for them to even begin such a project, that's an interstellar project, they already have to have some form of FTL, at least basic form of FTL, to get to be able to ship the resources and the workforce and etc. So yeah,
That's definitely a lot right there.
Just trying to imagine the engineering is
Yeah, that's a lot. And you had to take all this into account while writing your stories. Like, how often did these come into play and shift things around early on when you kind of just learned more as you went?
Oh yeah, it does. I did try to not go into full cosmic horror style aliens, because I could have, but it quickly goes into boring territory, because that's like it boggles the mind. It's like the stakes get too high too quickly when you have this, like, yes, they're building sun-sized ships, let's say, or planet-sized ship. Even a moon-sized ship it's insane. And even though in the Star Shattered universe there are ancient civilizations who are of that level, they are, most of them, it's like they have reached a level of development that they have become stagnant. Some of them, they have fallen into certain practices which are born out of eternal plenty of possibilities, of endless possibilities, and they have like, yes, we can move planets now. Yay, we can move suns now. We can create suns. We can build planets. What's next? And there comes a time when they reach a level that is they cannot see anything beyond that, and some of them regress on purpose. They forget the technology, and they live like primitives, like barbarians on the artificial planets that their ancestors built. Others fall into debauchery, and eventually die out. So, and some they just look for someone on their level, if someone would reach their level, so they could go and play with them, and by play they would test that other species that has reached their level, and in many cases it's war, and it's war with weapons and technology that we can't even imagine. It's something that the lower species, they won't even understand. Even if they could see it, they will not able to understand what's happening. So yeah, that's that part of the ancient galactic civilizations from the previous cycles. And the much younger species, which are probably between hundreds of thousands of years and 500,000 years young, these are considered younger species, ambitious species, which they are expanding and conquering, or doing other things. These are the actual quote unquote living species, active species. But the ancient ones, no, they just I mean, some of them were benevolent, but it's like, you don't know. One day after after the second billion years, or maybe the third billion years, that civilization would just flip, and they would think of something that would occupy their time, and something that they have never done, and that thing might change them irreversibly. Like one of the civilizations, they wanted to have this galaxy spanning, let's call it internet, and they manipulated hyperspace. They shoved entire planets inside hyperspace, and they stabilized them so they wouldn't move. And they thought that they were creating the ultimate communication and information sharing technology network, which, yes, that they did to an extent, but they have created an apocalypse, galaxy-wide apocalypse. And yes, the system works. It still works after who knows how many millions of years. but it destroyed them. It destroyed most of their civilization. Was ruined by this galaxy spanning internet, which is called by the modern civilizations GNet. And you have ancient AI lurking there. You have the souls of countless billions also lurking there.
Have you explored this in your stories, by the way?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. Which say if people find this interesting, which book would be good for them to explore this portion of you? Because I know you've written a few out there.
I did not start outright with this, the main series, but it is in the main series, throughout the main series, and especially when the cybernetic, the cyberverse is concerned, because it is this galaxy spanning network is part of the cyberverse, and it every time in I think it starts. I hint this in the very first book, and I progressively increased stakes and add show more, which with each following book. And since I have an AI character, Alice, who is modeled after Alice, like the Wonderland Alice. She at least in the beginning she looks like her. She is the person who is best outfitted. She has been created, birthed to fight and protect humanity from certain malevolent entities there who lurk there. And in some cases, even while you're just flying through hyperspace, you could be under attack by a cyber entity, some spirits that have traversed GNet or ancient AI or something. And then sometimes the boundaries between the digital and the relative kind of evaporate. So that's it's quite quite interesting aspect of that universe, and I really love and I liked writing about it, especially in the later books. Newer books I wrote much more because I have created I've built the foundation for it, and with each new book I added more. So it wasn't just jarring and popping out of the nothingness.
Well, I love what he's doing with this, especially because he's not just focusing on physical aspects of space travel. You're also looking at the cybernetic aspects of something that we already have access to, which is actually fiber optic technology. One of the closest things that we have to faster than light technology right now, or speed of light technology, is fiber optic, which is also being translated into different forms now as we take it into the digital realm. And when you look at that point, we start talking about scale, what is faster than light movement? We have it here on Earth to a certain extent. We're working on this right now. We've been making breakthroughs with it. And when we start talking about large scale versus small scale, one of the things that was most stunning about the Star Trek universe was that they were actually doing it node to node, much like we have our internet set up now. You had the transporter to transporter setup. They would move faster than light through the transporter setup. So we have this same sort of technology today, not with bodies of people perhaps, but faster than light technology from node to node in the cybernetic universe. And in Ring World, which I just, right now just escaped my mind, but in Ender's Game and others, we have these technologies where people are using them to move faster than light, and they were we call them cybernauts in the cyberpunk stories. They're people who actually explore the cybernetic universe of being able to move things and data and packets from one point to the next at a faster than light technology, and how we might piggyback off of that to actually moving ourselves in packets or in forms is basically the world that's in Star Trek, which is to move yourself and basically rearrange yourself on the other end. And as someone said the other day, just on X, was that basically you're just rearranging yourself each time you're a new person. You're coming.
You're not the same.
Yeah, you're not the same. You come through, and if the transporter messes up, you're in trouble because you're just coming through with your memories and everything else, but you're being rearranged. Well, we have these already the ability to do that in terms of avatars and AI intelligence and sentient beings. And Watcher the Damned, one of the things that's sort of a spoiler, so just to let you know, is we talk about this as a cyberpunk universe in some respects, because we have cybernetic cowboys, we have people that have been affected in the past who've lost their ability to access technology. They are attempting to access it again, and you still have a portion of this universe, this world, where people are able to access this technology, but it is aging and it is dying. Satellite servers that are out in space are still able to reach out and touch some people if they have active technology, maps, things like that. There's also the potential to move ourselves in our forms of our mirror images, of our mirror AIs, the ones that we create and put ourselves out there. How much of us really is being moved through that? If we enter that universe, how much of us is really there? Are we ourselves? Or are we just a sentient avatar of ourselves? Which one are we? And so we have the ability to try to move into that universe and Watcher the Damned. It reflects our own reality here on this planet as we're going towards that faster than light technology here on Earth. And the scale of universes, from just being able to do this in the ham radio world, because we talked about it before, when you can actually go online with your ham radio, you can transmit your radio waves and digital data via radio waves. And we're able to do that point to point. So I can get on one radio that's not connected to the internet, and I can talk to another radio somewhere else, and I can transmit data, actually send a file when I know how to access it, and I know how to go from this server to that server. And that is the speed of sound. That is the speed of that radio wave, if that's what you're using. And we have the ability to do that with speed of light now with our, or close to it, with fiber optics. It's actually about 2/3 the speed of light, and we are able to do that now. I think that this is going to be actually the breakthrough that we have for our speed of faster than light technology is already within our grasp in that cybernetic universe.
Yes, it's Lily asks an interesting question about the transporters of Star Trek. She asks, what I always wondered is why when they transported people with colds, viruses, and diseases. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there was like a device which a pattern buffer, was it? I think it was pattern buffer, and it stored the entire makeup, the genetic makeup of the transported. And the idea is that it would help reconstitute that version of yours, which is like the OG version, when you return to the ship. And even if you have like some virus, it will not try to tweak with that, like the data, because it's dangerous enough. The entire process is dangerous enough, and they just before they advanced the transporter technology, they just didn't want to do it. It was too big of a risk, and that's why They transported them with the colds and the sniffles and the coughs and sometimes even some like unknown bacteria and viruses, which created extra drama. But yeah, it's like, if I can say something about this kind of teleportation, I have this in Star Shutter, but it's not. It works by way of you've got to have a telepath and a rare one who is capable of holding space, which is basically he or she's doing, or there's some species who are different. They are doing fold. They are folding the space, and they're pulling you or deploying you somewhere through hyperspace, and it can, of course, can be weaponized. They can move weapons, bombs. They can steal stuff. They can extract people who are in danger of getting killed or dying in some area which is deadly, or there is about to be, let's say, an explosion or a tsunami or something, like a natural event, and they would fold them back on the ship, up on the ship. So they're not to manipulate hyperspace in such a way so that they could have like something akin to Star Trek's transporters. It's not quite possible, or at least that's what it's like the current level of technology, of the mass technologies in the galaxy. Some of the ancient, the older civilizations, they might have it, but you can't possibly go there and say, "Oh yeah, give me your technology." It's in most cases they won't even consider you a sentient race unless you're on their level of technology. They'll just ignore you, and you can't do jack shit. They'll probably be completely invulnerable to everything that you could throw at them. So, yes, we have transporters, but it's they're made of flesh, and it's through their minds that you're teleported and down and up, or wherever you want to go. So,
You know what had who I thought did or I should say what series did a pretty good spin on faster than light travel, and that was The Expanse.
ooh, yeah,
And how you had to essentially be injected with the series of chemicals to keep you alive during the travel, so that way you make it to the other side relatively in one piece. I thought that was a very clever way of doing it and adding in a layer of vulnerability to your characters and endangerment to what would otherwise be considered a normal activity. And actually, in the midst of, when you were speaking about all this, it reminded me of a very almost barely remembered property. Got a dog coming in here brushing up against me.
Oh,
yes, pet doggy.
What is it? This property called Planet Side, which is a game series, which where it's already niche, but then one that's been mostly forgotten. But they use a type, I guess what you'd call faster than light travel, but there's this difference where it's essentially the entire planet is in this never-ending war, and the way that they're able to actually fuel all this is because they got this technology that they call nanites. And what nanites do is they deprint and they reprint, almost like a 3D printer, except they could print just about anything. And the way it functions is these soldiers will be out there, they'll be fighting, and then they'll die, and they'll have the technology on them that deprints their bodies, these nanites. You just see their bodies essentially just fade into green particles, and there's nothing left. And then it's almost kind of like how you were saying it, Snow. Their consciousness travels on this web down to this node that reprints their bodies and just inserts their consciousness in a brand new body, and they go. And it's become such a common use that even if they're to be redeployed somewhere, say like 10,000 miles away, they'll be perfectly healthy, perfectly fine, and their own technology and their inbuilt suits will literally kill them. So that way they will be despawned. So life to them means so little.
Oh, God.
And on top of that, to keep them going, because they're in this endless war, when they get reprinted, if you will, their thoughts are altered, and images of brutality and heinous acts committed by the other side are inserted in there to increase their prejudice for the other sides and to keep up the war. So it's a separate aspect of faster than light travel that's literally used as a means of warfare. So I think that's it. Go ahead. Go ahead, Phil.
I think it's what a fantastic way to segue to that part where we're talking about, as we talk about faster than light technologies, and we touched on this before, that it's borderline magic, it's borderline spirituality, because light is such a powerful image. In writing and as authors, as we explore this, it's not just about space, it's not just about cyber, it's not just about the magic part of it. It is about how we perceive this thing called light, what it does, and how we transport ourselves through it. The world we see around us is interpreted through light. Our sensors, the sensors that we have that we call eyes, interpret certain wavelengths, and we see an image in our head. We are faster than light. We are receiving data from this wavelength where it tells me I am looking at a red dot, and I see it in my mind. This is faster than light technology, because I'm receiving it as fast as it can be processed through these chemicals that are the fantastic machine known as humans, where we can see things, we can smell things. These things are transported through these chemicals, and it was kind of interesting when you talked about the chemical, the chemical complex that helps people go from one point to the other. And I believe it's Black Knight was talking about it. Or when you're talking about reprinting and deconstructing ourselves, basically we are just interpreting the world around us through wavelengths. We see it in a certain way. We can be programmed by this, and that's where it touches on the AI aspect. Are we really just we start to go into that matrix or the synthetic? Are we in a simulation where we're being fed information? It's all we can receive. One of the issues we have when we talk about sensor technology, sensors are created by people who are interpreting data themselves through the limited sensors that they already have, and they theoretically know there is a sensor out there, there is a feedback out there somewhere where we want to see this thing at a particular wavelength, and we create a machine that can pick up that wavelength. We still have to have it translated for us. It may be the color Google Bot, but we don't know what the color Google Bot looks like, so it's going to look like red to us because that's all we can see. And so the sensor has to be able to interpret the data. Now we're receiving it from an AI, basically a construct that is going to think for us and determine how we can hear about this thing that we cannot comprehend. You start to get into some really deep philosophical questions when you talk about faster than light technology, when you talk about interpretation of these worlds, of these things that are beyond our comprehension. And as writers, we sometimes get a little overwhelmed because we want to look at all the data, all the, whether we're doing hard science fiction or we're doing cybernetics or we're doing soft science fiction or fantasy. We want to look at how does this actually work? What is it makes it happen? And I would suggest for writers who are wanting to write about it, don't expect to get everything perfect when you're writing these stories, because we're building worlds. And even as we see scientists go out, and we talked before about how there are catastrophes in science. People die exploring. People make mistakes exploring. They're trying to find out how the universe works and they die. Writers can have the same thing happen. We're so afraid of plot holes, or we're so afraid of not getting it right, that we refuse to create a world. And so we want to make sure that we don't get bogged down in being afraid that we might create something and it misses a point somewhere, or it gets deconstructed later and it's not true. It will stop us from writing. Keep writing and keep on moving towards it. Get your facts as much as you can correct, but don't be afraid to explore that universe. If you make a mistake, if there's a failure somewhere, you're in good company. We have to learn to start forgiving ourselves as writers when we're exploring these deep philosophical and scientific subjects, because that's how the exploration of world happens. That's how we find out about it. And I think that a lot of writers, when they listen to these conversations that we have, sometimes get concerned that if they create something, maybe it won't be correct, maybe they won't really have it right. And I don't want anybody to ever get the idea that they have to have it all perfect and it's got to work every time. Or when we look at Star Trek and how often somebody will come back, we were just talking about the transporter to transporter faster than light movement. There's so many plot holes in it. When they go back and look at it, they have to find a way to sort of explain it sometimes. That's okay. It started the conversation. That 40 years ago, somebody thought of this thing, and we've already moved past that point, or we found out something doesn't work. It's all right. It started the conversation. Don't be afraid to create your world, to use these things and to say, hey, I've got part of it right. Maybe I'll learn more later. But for right now, this is what we know, and I'm going to have it in my world, because these technologies and these magics, we need that inspiration as a society today. We need to dream about worlds beyond our imagining.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most important things for the advancement of civilization and society. I mean, if you remember that, let's say, the case with the steam engines and the trains, what I read, I mean, I read a lot about it, but um, I kind of, the thought came back to me after you said something that the women were taught that they would explode, like their organs would explode if they would drive cars. So back in the day when they were working on, it's like in the dawn of the steam engine, first they had these massive behemoth vehicles which grumbled and moved really slow on paved roads, and these were basically locomotives, but they were quite slow. They were, of course, able to pull heavy loads, heavy cargo, and someone thought that well, we can put these on rails, and they would move faster, much faster, and then we can put them on ships, and the ships will move faster. It will be like if when there is no wind, the ships will move faster, and this is the almost the beginning of the thought of faster than horse travel, faster than wind travel, faster than your your legs travel. And there were people who were against it. They said, no, it's unnatural. People will die. People are not, they have not evolved to move faster than the speed of horse, or like faster than, I mean, that was basically the fastest travel speed, the speed of horse. And they were actually quote unquote scientists who were writing articles, and they were claiming, they were like giving bold claims that yes, everyone who travels faster than, let's say, 50 kilometers per hour on the train, on these new and super unsafe trains, their eyes will pop out of their skulls, and then their organs will explode, and there'll be just smears on the seats. And well, actually didn't happen. But for a time, there were people who were mortally afraid um, of even being near a steam engine, um, because some of these so-called scientists, they said like, this is unnatural, it attracts demons, and the demons will possess you if you I'm not joking.
You know,
um,
well, there was so much out there that we forget that, and yes, there were some things that were very dangerous. We forget the ones that
oh
were
yes,
dangerous because we
these
didn't
fucking
want to
engines,
go.
they did explode. I mean, the first ones, they weren't safe.
That's the point.
The
Yeah.
boilers would explode and they would kill people, and they're like, see, they're totally unsafe, they're unreliable, you can't use them.
Well, even and also beyond that, there's the fact that they were also redundant at the time. And we talk about this redundant technology. You make something, and well, it's faster for me to do it this way. It's faster for me to do it the way I have. These we forget. They shouldn't completely replace the technology that we have. You should always have that remnant left, because as we see with Hurricane Helene, that you have to fall back, for instance, on radio because cell phone technology wasn't working. Even with Starlink, if the satellites fail, you no longer have the way to reach out and touch someone. What never fails, eventually, radio. You can always get out on the radio. Even if there's a jammer, there's a way to overcome those things if you know enough. You have to fall back sometimes on those old technologies, but that doesn't mean you stop moving forward with new ones. And we see at the beginning of each of these that technology is redundant. The horses could go faster than the steam engines could sometimes. They didn't have to have a rail. They could go anywhere. Do I still need horses to travel? Actually, yes. When it all goes down and it's all bad and you run out of gasoline, do you know who's going to be out there? The guys who are riding their horses. We have them out here. They come down the road. They actually come down the road in the cattle drives. I have photos of people driving by my going
They
by our house in a
they
wagon train.
actually operate without fuel. I mean,
Yes,
you have to
they
feed them.
yes, you have to feed. They eat their own grass. You go down the road, you're actually riding on them, and if you're in a place where there's fuels, if you know how to feed your horse and you know where to take them, they can refuel themselves. But they also have to rest, and they also
Oh,
have to be taken care of. So everything still has its place, but we cannot stop moving forward in technology simply because it's redundant. Those technologies get better, they get faster, they get more efficient. Eventually, they stop being redundant, and they make everything else obsolete, and that's the actual danger, that we can't lose what we had before. But we have to power through that. And when we're talking about our own technologies in our stories, or the magics that we use, or anything else, that's one of the challenges we have to overcome, is that there's these things that, well, why didn't they just use a horse? Why didn't they just use this thing? And you have to be able to say, in this world, these people chose this pathway. They chose this for a reason. And yes, they could have used other things, just like we could. Right now, you know what? I wash my dishes by hand. I have a dishwasher. I decided I wanted a mini fridge in there instead. If the dishwasher failed, I was like, dude, I want a mini fridge because I want to put all my sparkling waters in it. So I did. And I just wash things by hand. Do you know it's actually as fast for me to wash it by hand when I only have a couple of people as it is for me to run the whole dishwasher?
Yeah, yeah.
I literally just get in
I
there, wash
often
it.
do the same. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's redundant for me. But if I have 20 people at my house, you know what's faster? That dishwasher, because I just store it all in there and I turn it on and away it goes. So things have their place. They have their proper moment. And in our stories as well, we sometimes get a little bogged down that we're going like, well, I can say this, and then some joker will come along and go, why didn't they just do blah, blah, blah? Yes, because they didn't want to. It's my story, and I decided they were going to do it this way. But make sure in your stories that you have a real reason for them to do this thing, that they decided to not use horses because they didn't want horses to have to suffer, or they didn't know how to train them, or some other reason. We have to have a
Or there wasn't enough water.
That's right. There's not enough water. You're in a desert world where the horses have to have water. Why not camels? Then we got to transport them. But we have reasons for what happens in the world. Just make sure you have a plausible reason for why does this exist. How did they perhaps get there in a sort of a rudimentary fashion? And as you start exploring your own world, you start seeing how you start reading about the technology, you start reading about how this might work, or you go back into Jack Vance's work and look at his magic systems, and you decide this happens because of this particular framework of how magic works. And you keep that up throughout your books. We don't want plot holes, definitely. We don't want something to just open up and be like, there's no reason for this. It makes no sense. we
Yeah,
want to avoid
it's
that part, but we need to
consistency
be
is
able,
important. Yeah.
yes, but we do want to be able to make ourselves free enough to go, you know what, I'd like to explore this without me being afraid that I'm just screwing it all up. That I can't write about it at all
Yeah.
because I'm afraid of making a mistake.
Actually reminded me of one of my books, the 15 in the main series, where I I I did exactly, well, not 100% same, but I did a similar thing, which I sent my crew to a planet which had been stuck at a medieval level of technology, meaning like early Middle Ages. Though they had like some ancient vaults with high technology left over from an ancient, older civilization, but meaning that they are living in normal houses made of mud bricks and stone, and of course for my characters, they it's like, yeah, we can whip out the railguns, but what happens if when we miss? What happens when we miss? Where would that railgun round go? If it hits the mud brick house, or like the simple stone house, like mortar and stone, what will happen with this railgun round or the laser beam? Everyone inside the house, they're screwed. They're going to die. It's like that one missed shot and you will have collateral damage. However, what will happen if you whip out the old Winchester lever action rifle or the revolvers? They will kill the knights. They will shoot through the chainmail. They will kill the baddies, but they won't, like an accidental miss shot will not just melt the entire house. It will just ricochet of the rock from the rock. And that's why they've packed old West, and not also West, but let's say in the terms of let's talk in the terms that people who never read it know, but let's say old West guns, who are the bullet speed, the muzzle speed is much lower than the modern firearms that we have now, but it's enough to blow a nice, let's say, a couple inch hole in that knight who is charging you with his sword and his shield and his chainmail. You can shoot them. No problem. No issue. Yeah.
I love the fact that you brought that up, because we have faster than speed of sound technology with some of the guns that we have now. We actually have the ability,
yeah.
We actually have the ability to look at what we've got out there and say, wow, that was faster than speed of sound. It is frightening when you start actually thinking about the damage it can do. That's always an issue. Physics is always
insane. It's insane.
We have to have a backdrop, or else you're going to blow up your neighbor. You have to watch where you're shooting. And yes, you can have some major damage done by a railgun if it doesn't hit your target. And even then, we haven't even talked about shrapnel and other
yeah.
And that's a big thing. And when you start having actual shooters in your readership where they will go, well, what happened to the parts of it? You might not have an explanation. Be thinking, that's a great point. You have to be thinking about what's out there. What's going to happen to this technology if they miss?
That's in the end part. I did talk about it, because they have the other aliens who they just don't care. They don't care about the locals. They just, oh yes, that's the Terrans. Yeah, we have to kill them. We have to fight and win against them. But it's like, we don't give a damn that they're using like some outdated weapons. We'll just bring our space age tech, the armor, and the particle beam cannons and the missile launchers and everything, like the full package. And one missed shot, like from, let's say, from a heavy beam repeater, and half a neighborhood of medieval homes, like with hundreds of people, are screwed. They're going to die. And it actually, in the last battle of that book, you have this like literal rivers of molten stone and charred bodies turned into dust and everything, like a carnage on a massive scale, just because they don't care. They're like, some, like, who are these? Like, these natives. Yeah, they have swords, haha, swords and crossbows. We don't care about them. We only care to defeat our enemies. Well, what's a few million natives? Yeah, just you use these like orbital bombs, these plasma bombs that will incinerate the entire cities. Like, we don't give a damn, but the Terrans do. And yeah, if you want to find out what actually happens and how they managed to save them, it's probably one of the best battles I have ever written. So yeah, that's and this planet and the people there, the Luthorians, they have become quite beloved amongst my readers. And I've written a number of extra stories, like, because they love them so much. So
nice, not bad. And believe it or not, we got less than 10 minutes before we wrap it up. Like this hour and a half has really blown by once again, guys. So why don't you go ahead and tell us what you're working on, what's coming up next, and where they can find you. Why don't we start off with Snow?
Oh, I get to go first. Okay. Pretty shove me Alaskan. No, I'm working, of course, on Watcher of the Damned, my cyberpunk post-apocalyptic sci-fi western romance, and it's a very unusual genre, but the people who read it have been wonderful to me. I love you guys, all my readers out there. Thank you so much. Without you, I would have never gotten this far with this series. And of course, working on getting out this next book, it's been a little bit of a challenge because we have these other things going on, of course, like the hurricanes and for aid to other people, and at the same time we're still moving forward with this book. And actually, I said putting it back out for the edit. We do have this book, Caballeros del Camino. We go deep into the cybernetic world of Watcher of the Damned, of these cowboys finding out that they can still access the servers, that they can still make these connections through the AIs that we have. And we have an extensive cast of AI characters, actually, that are gaining sentience, including the Ring itself, which is, if you haven't read the series yet, I encourage you to start looking at the Ring as if it was River's feet from Firefly. We have a character that is actually entirely cybernetic. And as you read through the series, you will find out more and more about this character and how they have shaped the world and how they still continue on even after this terrible EMP event that wipes out most of technology on Earth, that is still a remnant out there, and how humanity and the cybernetic world, through faster than light technology, still tries to reach each other. And that's the story of Watcher the Damned, and I encourage you to go find it at watcherthedamned.com, where we can take you to your Amazon page for me, or you can also go to flow.page/RHSnow to see the rest of my socials and my Amazon page. Thank you so much, and God bless you all, and please keep the people that are being affected by Hurricane Helene in your prayers, please.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, it's pretty bad out there, hurricane-wise. Maybe we should talk about weather next week, about how weather affects various worlds and whatnot. Because I think that.
Oh yeah, that's a great. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Black Knight, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, like as always, you can find all of my Star Shatter books on Amazon, including my two anthologies, which for those of you who like short stories. I have 2 books. The first one is titled The Mandate of Sword and Railgun, which introduces my first story of the new genre called Sword and Railgun. And then the second one is titled The Blood of Tyrants. And both books are great for those of you who wish to get started into the world of Star Shuttle. With my brand new fantasy book, which is 100% old school fantasy, with lots of D&D and JRPG tropes and archetypes, heroic archetypes. It's a heroic pop. Lord of Bones, you can also find it at Amazon. And my 2 books, Conan-esque books, which star my Voltorian soldier character, Velin. You can also find them on Amazon. It's the first one is The Rifle Song, and the second one is Velin and the Bunker of Death, which is my throwback to the old school World War I bunker horror, strange horrors. It's pretty much what some of my more horror loving readers actually loved the most about it. The second book. So, and of course you can find me on Substack. My page is the Black Knight, substack.com.
Excellent. And I am James Esparza. I'm your host, pressing all the buttons over here. It's been another wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you show up next week. If you have any comments or questions for any hosts and you're on the rewatch, please go ahead and just leave a question down there in the comment section, and we might even answer it here on stream. My name's James Esparza, like previously said. I'm a short story writer. You can find all my lovely short stories and so much more that I'm working on, including a horror story that's going to be releasing next month. It's currently in the editing process, and a audio version of my story Glimmerleaf is going to be on YouTube on the 15th of next month on this very YouTube channel. So go ahead, keep your eyes open for that. But if you want to go ahead and check out all my stuff, you can check it out at worldwithoutendlore.substack.com. That's worldwithoutendlore.substack.com. But with that said, we're out of here, folks. Thanks for joining us again for another magnificent week.
Bye.
I love you.